Three, two, one, and we're live. Thank you so much for joining me today. Whether you're watching live or watching back, appreciate you being here. Just want to do a quick stream. Had some thoughts pop up in my head throughout the day, and I was like, you know what? Let's just do a quick stream. I'm still gonna do a stream Friday, and that'll be really my earnings preview, official stream. Still thinking about what I want my estimates to be for Q1. I've kind of historically done Tetron estimates. I'll have the analyst estimates, Tetron estimates, and then what the market's expecting, right? Or what actually comes out in the actual numbers. We can look at all those in the streams to follow and videos to follow. But overall, the main thing on my mind right now is enough with the tinfoil. Enough. It's enough. I've had enough. I'm not scared to say it. And listen, if you want to theorize about what's going on or what's going to happen, that's fine. But if I see another thing about Roaring Kitty being Greg and the hot dogs and this day and that day, I swear I'm going to rip my hair out of my head. It's getting ridiculous. It's been years of this. None of the tinfoil ever comes through. It just doesn't. And I guess some people are doing it for fun, right? And that's totally fine. But the thing to me is I feel like people on the outside, not truly closely following the GameStop story, just assume everyone in GameStop is crazy because of all these crazy theories. And it's yeah, some of it's just for fun. But also, I think some people genuinely believe some of these crazy things, like Roaring Kitty is Greg 64539 because of the numbers in his name, which correlates to that thing that Ryan Cohen did on that one day, and he was in New York City in this person's seat, and it's oh my god, again, it's fine. It's the internet. People are gonna do that, but I just feel like it's way more beneficial to just focus on what GameStop's doing and their numbers, day to day, and how they're going about things. And they have a lot of cash right now, right? As it stands right now, they have about $6 billion in cash, if I'm not mistaken, after the latest raising of funds, and about $500 million in cash because they'd already raised capital, through 3 share offerings, and then they did the convertible note offering, right? So we know the earnings are coming up on June 10th, which, by the way, I will be live, covering earnings live. I'm going to start around 3:30 Eastern, so about 30 minutes before, ride right into the earnings report, and then go as long as I can, just talking about my favorite stock, right? So we'll see what comes of that, and I'm going to briefly touch on some stuff I'll be looking for in this earnings report, but I'll go more in depth this coming Friday, so stay tuned for that, Friday afternoon. But we know they've raised, $1.3 billion, plus the extra $200 million. So overall, $1.5 billion. They've only used about $500 million of that, roughly, to buy Bitcoin. So one thing we will find out in the earnings report that I'm looking forward to is how much did they spend on Bitcoin? What is their cost basis? Did they acquire more since their initial filing? Did they sell in any way? Is there any kind of shenanigans going on? My prediction is they just bought what they said they bought, and that's it so far. And they're easing into it, right? And they're slowly becoming orange-pilled, so to speak. But in my opinion, the best approach in terms of buying Bitcoin is to only buy Bitcoin with what they raise from these private offerings of convertible senior notes. By doing that, they're borrowing the money at a 0% rate and putting it into Bitcoin, and they also have cash on the balance sheet. So in a mega bear cycle for Bitcoin, which we've never seen a cycle like this, but let's say Bitcoin kind of peaks out later this year and it doesn't go back up till the 2030s, right? So the notes come due and GameStop has to pay them back. They'll have the cash to cover it, and also they'll have been accumulating interest on that cash for the time being. Yeah, sure, interest rates could be cut, but definitely interest rates aren't going to zero. I don't really think we'll ever see that again for any foreseeable future. So they continue to earn interest on that. They'll keep having positive free cash flow, positive EPS, and continue to stack the cash pile until either they invest it in marketing, or probably not marketing, more so I want to say research and development, but more so the next avenue of business that they want to go down, or they're going to acquire something. Meanwhile, they can continue to raise capital at this 0% rate to buy Bitcoin. So they still have about $1 billion left to buy Bitcoin over the next several months ahead. And I think they're just easing into it. I'm okay with that. I personally own Bitcoin already, and I'm truly a believer that if it's not your keys, it's not your crypto. So while I love GameStop owning Bitcoin, I feel like for myself individually, I'm still always going to buy and hold Bitcoin. And how I go about it is I just use SAP Strike, daily buys. Don't have to think about it. Simple DCA. And I thought the mic was off for a second, but and then you don't have to think about it. And I do the same with some different stocks right now, like I've been buying. For example, AMD is a stock I've been buying for a while, Elf's a stock I've been buying. Palantir's, getting involved in other investments. But ultimately, if you like a stock or Bitcoin, I think the best way to go about it is just dollar cost average. And I think they're almost doing that in their own way, right? That's kind of my thought here. And they're doing it with very low risk. They see, okay, well, there's a lot of companies trying to become like Bitcoin treasury companies. I don't think that's GameStop's aim. I think they're realizing, okay, because of this new age where that's kind of becoming a normalized thing, we can utilize that to raise capital at a 0% rate. And in doing that, then we can go ahead and buy Bitcoin, essentially risk-free, right? Not exactly, because obviously, it is borrowed money, and at the end of the day, there are borrowers. However, if you're keeping that much cash on the balance sheet and putting it into a money market fund or treasuries that are short-dated, then you're going to keep earning interest on that cash, and you have that cash in your back pocket just in case things don't go well. And as time goes on, I think if there isn't a good acquisition opportunity or way for them to expand the business, then maybe they start to look more like a Bitcoin treasury company. I don't think they'll ever fully go with that. But ultimately, I think they're going to keep leaning into PSA and the card grading, which, by the way, I got my 2 cards back, right? I'll show you guys real quick. Where are we at here? Boom. So we got Rempe. Whoop. Camera's over here. Or this is, whoop. Connor Bedard, he's a beast. Too much sunlight right now, this time of day. And then we got Rempe. Of course, unfortunately, they both came back as 9s, even though they were straight out of the pack. The card I just sent in, I really hope it's a 10. I got this guy, Lane Hudson. By the way, Stanley Cup final starts tonight. I love hockey, so I'm pumped to watch that. But Lane Hudson is an amazing rookie, and I was lucky enough to pull his rookie card, sent it in for grading, took really good care of it right away put it in his sleeve, right away put it in a, semi-ridge holder, whatever it's called. Brought it there. Hopeful for a 10. It's worth like $400 if it's a 10. Even if it's a 9, it's like $80, $90. And I'll probably hang on to it either way because I think he's a great player and he's a lot of upside. But just utilizing the business, right? For me, I like the company, so I'm going to utilize it in terms of what I'm doing with cards. And I'm a very casual collector. I'm not going to go out here and say, I'm buying cards left and right, grading left and right. I'm just really a casual collector. And that's what's best for me. And my journey with GameStop and investing and just building the life I want to build, as dramatic as it sounds, right? It's just focusing on myself and doing little things. And just, that's why you'll see I'm not as active on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it these days. It's just so much noise and all these like crazy tinfoil theories. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep reading what GameStop comes out with. And besides that, I'm just going to focus on myself and sharpening the saw, so to speak, perfecting my craft and just doing different things, right? I'm becoming more and more outdoorsy. Like I've been growing some plants, like growing some veggies. I'm going to grow some new ones. You'll see them here soon, lined up, start them as seeds and just building the lifestyle I want to build, right? And have a sustainable lifestyle. And I love doing YouTube and doing the streaming, the videos, but I really want to do it as a hobby. And I'm not saying like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do it, just disappear for periods of time and then come back. But really I like to do it as a hobby. And I really like the game of investing, but I'm not ever going to come out here telling you like, oh, buy this course, buy this, do that, right? I'll share what I'm doing. I don't mind doing that. But remember, I'm literally just a guy on the internet, and all these other people out there pitching you all these crazy theories and buy this course, that they're all just people on the internet, right? So you have to know thyself, trust thyself, and also develop thyself, right? And on that note, see back here, we're getting ready to rebrand to Tetron Talks because I'm a yapper, so I feel like it's a more fitting name. And I feel like Tetron Invest kind of gives off that financial guru type of vibe, and that's not what I want. I want to cover the GameStop story because I think it's so fascinating, but also I want to just share my different ideas in my own journey, right? Because everyone's on their own path in some shape or form, whether that be financially, mentally, physically, right? All those things combined. So for me, what I've found success in is just focusing on myself, improving myself constantly in like all aspects of life. And it's not an overnight thing, and I'm not saying like, oh, I've got this whole life formula figured out all of a sudden. But moral of the story is ignore the tinfoil, ignore the speculation, just focus on what the numbers are. And speaking of the numbers, a couple of things I am looking for in the report are, one, what does it look like for the sale of Canadian operations? Maybe we get news of the French sale of operations. I don't necessarily think so. But how much did they get from selling off the Canadian business? And are they ultimately going to say, hey, we're only going to operate domestically in the United States? I don't think so. I think Australia is still okay. It's still profitable. But also, on that note, I do want to see them be net profitable for the quarter, despite, a one-time potential gain on the Canadian operations. And another thing I do want to see in the very near future is an operating profit. I do think they'll get there later this year. I just realized I forgot to open OBS, or not OBS, Obsidian. It's my main place. But really what I want to see, right, when you look at their margins, is I want to see an operating profitable margin. We've seen that in Q4, but they ultimately need to have an operating margin that is positive. And I think they're getting real close. They got a little bit more work to do. PSA is definitely going to help that, and also gross margins. So you might have seen too with the cards, and I found this out literally yesterday when I went to GameStop, that even if you're a pro member now, you can't ship the cards in for free, but you do get $5 off the shipping. While that kind of sucks, at the same time, and the other side of the coin, like, okay, as an investor, like, they're making sure this aspect of what they're doing is profitable. And in terms of gross margins, I really want to see those push towards 40%. That's going to take time, but I think just with continuing to grind at it and move it the right direction, they can get there. And again, I understand people are going to be like, oh, well, their revenue keeps going down. But I argue, like, EPS going up continues to be more beneficial. And Bitcoin is going to help raise their underlying value. And in a way, also, cards are an alternative asset. So they're very slowly but surely shifting this business model to be very unique, in my opinion, right? Where it's, okay, we're only going to operate the legacy business in a way that is profitable and generating positive free cash flow, or operating free cash flow, which will lead to positive free cash flow. And we're going to, buy some Bitcoin, accumulate it. We see it as a treasury asset. We understand what's going on in the world right now, that the US dollar is endlessly printed, which means other countries have been able to endlessly create their currency, right? And this is something that's been going on for decades. And I think more and more people are waking up to it. And again, why I'm very bullish on Bitcoin. And they're going to seek new avenues of business, right? So getting involved in PSA is a relatively newer thing. We saw them try the NFT stuff. I don't really think they're going to quite go back to that. And there's some theories out there. But ultimately, what they've done this whole time, even as they took a chance, right, on the NFT business, they've ensured that they've kept the company in good financial standing. And the balance sheet continues to get stronger as time rolls on. And look at their current ratio, for example, right? If we pull it up on Yahoo Finance real quick. Up here, and also, yeah, just see all this crazy stuff. All of a sudden now, Elon is completely going against Trump, all this drama, right? You guys know I don't care about talking about politics, but it's crazy. And, whether you like Elon or not, or whatever you think of him, or Trump or whatever, right? Elon's bringing up a good point that it's like, hey, all this bill does is lead to printing more money, and this is what's been going on for so long, and we need to be more economically efficient in terms of the deficit. We need to stop a deficit. And Warren Buffett said it best, right? I always see that clip, he's resurfaced once in a while. Oh, I know how to stop the deficit. Make it so that as if the U.S. runs more than a 3% deficit of GDP, then all of Congress is ineligible for re-election. Things would change real quick, right? And we're already at the point where you're like 20-25% of all money being spent is on interest. So we're going to just issue new debt to pay down old debt, and it's just a snowball that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that is ultimately why Bitcoin has value to me, and why I think it's a great move that GameStop acquired some. So obviously I'm going on a tangent here, as per usual, just talking about a lot of different stuff. But these are all just the different things like bouncing around in my skull recently, because just so much tinfoil. It's like you could just focus on the numbers, and it's fine, right? It's fine. People having fun with it. And, we get these intraday moves, people get excited, and it comes right back. But you just have to know the game, right? Know the game, play the game, right? And how I've been doing that more so recently over the past year or so is I started really actively selling puts on GameStop. And I execute like the wheel strategy. On occasion, I've had to sell a call. But more so, I'm selling puts because also the company has been trending up, right? So if you look, we had this big spike, we came back down. It's like, oh, the rally's all over. But it's still holding 29-30 level pretty good, right? Granted, it's only been like a few business days, but it seems like we're still on a general uptrend here, right? And then when you zoom out even more, it still seems like we're in a general uptrend since this bottom here, right? And I always go back to this, but I think it's so important. look back at this point right here. If you told anyone, hey, look in the future, GameStop will have raised $5 billion between share offerings, roughly estimating, 3 share offerings and 1 convertible note offering, and the share price will be significantly higher, they'll have Bitcoin on the balance sheet, they would have been like, you're crazy, right? And yet, here we are. So it's just such a unique stock and unique situation, and I believe in it, and I know, those on the outside looking in are still like, this is crazy, I don't understand it. How is this thing still around? And I saw GameStop posted on Instagram when they're buying Bitcoin. People are like, how is this company not buying bankrupt and they're buying Bitcoin? And it's like, read the balance sheet, buddy. But that just shows you how generally ignorant the world is. They just read headlines, oh, this person said this person said that. But you have to just look at what's going on, right? And whenever you're seeing all this tinfoil and stuff going on, or it's making you uncertain anyway, while I'm not in the business of giving financial advice, I would recommend just look at the numbers. Read about what's going on with the US dollar endless creation and why, there's these Bitcoiners, right? People are being orange pilled, and read GameStop's financial statements over time. You could see the steady improvement. And while it's not, Nvidia where you're seeing this massive growth cycle, and they are, doing all the little things right, ultimately, potentially the kill shot, and I've seen Morantz talk about this for quite a while now, so shout out to him for bringing this to my attention. GameStop in the S&P 500 will be huge. It will be huge, and I don't think it's impossible. It might not be tomorrow or the next day. It might take some more time, but to me, that's really where we could see this thing go crazy, right? And not to say it can't move up significantly before that. Part of that could be from Bitcoin. Part of it could be from just increased profitability. But really, what I want to see is EPS continue to go up, right? And enough with the tinfoil, right? I can't even go on Twitter lately because I feel like it's just so much tinfoil. I'm like, God, it drives me crazy. Look at this current ratio, 8.0. Look at their current ratio over time. I remember on a stream, a few months back, I think it was only before the last earnings report, the current ratio was 5 or 6, and that's pretty favorable. An 8 current ratio is crazy. So current assets to current liabilities. They could pay for all their current liabilities 8 times over. That's what that means. And this debt you see of $410 million, that's really just store leases. They essentially have no debt. So it's truly just such a unique situation. And obviously, insiders are bullish, right? This is the player I was talking about before. What a sick pull. I still can't believe it. But, insiders will steadily buy shares. And critics will argue, oh, it's such a minor amount of shares. But at the end of the day, they are putting their own money into it. And also, they're not selling shares, right? Like we see a lot of other institutions do. So that is worth noting. We'll see anyone's chilling in the chat right now. The sun's finally going down this time of day. What's up, Brian? Hope you're doing well. Because I can. What up? What up? You got 2 hours to talk that GME wisdom until game 1. You know it, Ryan. You know it. What's up, Tetron? What's up, Scott? I predict GME made money. Grand Tetron. Hey, that's why I'm here, right? But no, I appreciate you guys being here for real. And again, streams will be every Friday, starting around 5 o'clock or whenever I can get home from work and just fire up the stream. But on occasion, when I just have thoughts bouncing around in my skull, I'm like, you know what? We're just going to pop on and do a stream. And that's why we're here today. Because we're getting close to earnings, right? We're getting close to earnings. We know it's the 12th. Or sorry, the 10th. I don't know why I keep having in my mind that it's the 12th. It is the 10th, Tuesday. We know they raised this capital. We know they bought some Bitcoin. So we want to see how much Bitcoin did they buy? When did they buy at cost basis? What's the one-time sale price of the Canadian operations? Do we get any more additional information on PSA? I don't necessarily think we will, but it's something I honestly would like to see in the coming future. Is let's get some specific numbers surrounding what's happening with PSA. We know they hit 1 million cards graded through GameStop. Jeez, I don't even know when that was at this point. Not too long ago. So, they're definitely bringing in money on that. And with that, there's generally a lower overhead cost, meaning they're not really having to spend besides on shipping, right? And the individual's covering the shipping cost to send the cards to PSA. So most of what they're doing with PSA is pure profit, or I guess you can't say that. They're obviously giving PSA money as well, but they don't really have any overarching costs to operate it at this time or to have added it to their business. And also, I just went to my local GameStop, and they have a good process where they take pictures of the cards, they do everything right in front of you. It's very transparent. And I'll say something that I've also been saying for a while, that the big collector is not, the major collectors are not going to go through GameStop. They already know what they're doing. They've already been sending in cards to PSA. GameStop is for introducing younger individuals, right? Where they might say to the parent, "Hey, I want to get this card graded. Trust me, mom. It's really valuable. You got to take me to GameStop to get this graded." Because they're not going to be shipping things in, right? We're talking like a 12-year-old kid who gets a really rare Pokemon card or something like that. Like, trust me, it's a good move. Their parent, okay, where's the easiest way to do it? Oh, I can take them to GameStop. No problem. I'll talk to the person there. And someone like myself, very casual collector, just getting involved, or not just getting involved, but just grading for the first time, again, because of GameStop, it's a great entry point. So I really think they have something going there. I do wonder if maybe they could open, I've been saying this for a while, also like card stops, just like little locations, right, where they literally just have like 2 employees there at most at any time, and just specifically focus on card grading, and maybe put it in malls where they currently aren't. I know around me, how I've seen GameStop over the past several years is pretty much only areas with major foot traffic have remained open. So like my main one is in like a major mall in the area, and it just makes sense, right? And they just continue to do the little things, right? Chip away at costs, boost profitability, try things like PSA. And I do really want to see, are they going to take things a step further with PSA, right? How exactly, I couldn't tell you. But with Nat Turner on the board, it would make me think that there are plans to do this in some shape or form. I was theorizing in the past, could there be some kind of merger or acquisition with PSA's overhead company, Collectors? I believe that's the name. I do have it on here somewhere. This mega sheet. I got to sort this out before earnings. And also, you look at their annual net income. It's trending in the right direction, right? Could we see 260 million of net income year over year for the year 2025? It might be bold, but I think it's doable. And obviously, a part of it is based on interest rates and their interest income. And also, with Bitcoin on the balance sheet now, that is another factor in the equation. So we'll have to kind of circle back on that, think about that a little bit more. But okay, so I do have when they hit the 100 million mark. So promotion ends 3-23. So it was around March, right? So it was a little over 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago. When did they start doing this? Around November. Who's to say they're not nearly at 2 million, right? Potentially. And we'll have to see as 2025 rolls on, what does it look like year over year, the numbers as a whole for GameStop. And ultimately, does that look much more profitable, not just because of PSA, but because of all the different moves they're making, right? And really what I have to get on here, I'm going to add this as a note for myself. Let's add, there we go. Add GameStop revenue by segment section. So this is something I have to add on. I definitely want this during my earnings streams, but I want to get their by segment, which really kind of shows me why they're winding down these international operations, right? And on the note of PSA, right, I did do some estimates back here since we're on the topic. Why not touch on it? So they started around mid-October, assuming a 90-10 split. Seems like large majority are TCG. It might be better to assume 85-15, but this was rough numbers, right? So total cards graded 1 million, 9 out of 10, 900,000. Other cards 100,000. Price per TCG. And by the way, this has changed since. So we get a rough estimate of about 16.3 million of total revenue, but we don't know how much of that is falling on the bottom line, right? And obviously they can grow the rate of this, and now they charge more per shipping, so they should make more in net profit on this. And maybe that was the plan all along, to really limit the shipping price, to try and get people drawn into doing it. And then obviously we have the price raise right here. So, for example, I just went in, I only sent one card in, right? And the shipping, by the way, is a flat fee for when you send a bunch of cards in. And when I sent the card in, it was $20.99 plus $10 shipping, but -$5 because I'm a pro member, but then another -$5 because I was using my monthly coupon, which you get as a GameStop Pro member. So overall, it only cost me $21, $20, right? And this is gonna be a card that's, if it comes back at $9, $80, $90, comes back at $10, $400 hopefully, right? I'm hoping for a $10. So you can kind of do some napkin math on it, right? Assuming PSA takes 10 to 13 a card, so GameStop's cut would be $6.99 to $8.99. That's what I was guesstimating. It could be more, right? I'm sorry, it could be less, to be fair, because PSA is huge. But given that Nat Turner's on the board, I feel like they would give them a favorable rate. So estimating, right, based on the same rate, was about 18.4 to 20.7 million annually, and then PSA would make about 25.3 to 27.6 off GameStop. So this was like what they would get net, right? So that would boost the bottom line. And again, it's not major, but it just shows that they continue to move in the right direction. And also, really, the whole goal of this, I'm just trying to show a breakdown of what's going on with PSA. Not saying like, oh, it's all saved and not saved, but everything's all fine and dandy, and revenue is going to grow massively, net income is going to grow massively because of the grading revenue. I think it's just a matter of them moving in the right direction. That's really what it is. But overall, I want to see things continue to trend up, right? What are we seeing after earnings, right? What does the stock price look like after earnings? And then we'll wrap it up here because I want to make today just a quick stream, just quick thoughts on the top of my head. But I think, if the price continues to trend up into next week, we get back to that 35 level. I feel like unless EPS is much stronger than anticipated and revenue decline isn't as bad as anticipated, then we could see it pop after that. But historically speaking, when GameStop's going up a lot into earnings, usually the price comes down after, right? So just something to keep in mind. And I always like to temper my expectations. And generally also, the options market prices in like a move of like, let's say, for example, going to next earnings. I don't know what exactly it is. The option market is pricing a move of 13% either way to the upside or downside. It's very likely the stock's going to move less than 13% either way, because what will happen then is option writers, the IV crush will come after the earnings, and most of them will fall in value. So I feel like, if it keeps trending up, it will probably trade down a little bit after earnings unless we get some great news. They bought a lot more Bitcoin. EPS was way stronger than expected. Something unforeseen, right? Otherwise, it's probably going to kind of have a general move, right? Or it could be one of those that drops after hours. The next day it opens lower, kind of slowly trends up, breaks about even, right? That's kind of like, I don't expect any kind of major move in this time period up ahead. That's at least my thoughts, but again, I'm literally just a guy on the internet, so I could be totally wrong. And, we had this big run-up, and then they buy this in typical GameStop fashion, right? They actually announced that they bought Bitcoin, and then it goes down after, right? Only GameStop. I wish I could say I was surprised, but it's just in typical GameStop fashion. When the actual news comes out, ooh, everybody's selling, oh my gosh, forget GameStop, it's all over, right? But yeah, that's all I got today. I just want to share some quick thoughts, and we will be back on Friday, 2 days from now, 5 p.m. Eastern. So hope to see you there. But also, just remember, take the tinfoil. Let me be serious here. To the main screen. Take the tinfoil with the utmost grain of salt. And if you're playing options by buying them, I've been selling, right? And I found that to be a good strategy for me. And to be perfectly clear, when I'm selling options, that's completely separate from my long-term positions, such as my GameStop long-term position. So I'm not actively selling calls on my long-term shares. The only time I've ever had to sell a call on GameStop is in a situation where my put got exercised. So with that being said, it's the wheel strategy. If you are buying options, you have a high-risk appetite. That's okay, or I guess I should say appetite for high risk. But just know what you're getting yourself into, and just look at the historical data of GameStop and just understand option buyers get crushed more often than not. And that's honestly what kind of propelled me towards the idea of selling options. I'd read about it for a while, started becoming interested in it, and also built up and saved up, where I was like, okay, I'm going to put some money into this and see how this does for me. And I put it in a separate portfolio, and I found it's what works best for me. It doesn't mean you should do it, because again, I don't give financial advice. I'm a guy on the internet, and you got to know what's best for you. So just keep that in mind, and don't get too caught up in the tinfoil. There's so much noise out there. Amazingly, I feel like now more than ever, which is kind of crazy to say because it's been years of forget GameStop. This is the next play. That's the next play. Silver short squeeze, right? Who remembers that way back when? Peppermint Farms remembers. Peppermint. I don't know what the hell it's called, but you know what I'm talking about. But just ignore the noise. Just ignore the noise. focus on the numbers, focus on improving yourself and improving your knowledge base so you can make the most informed decisions and not let your emotions get the best of you. Because the reality of it is, even as I've become, more experienced, and I'm not this seasoned veteran in the market, but I'm fortunate enough where I started out at a young age reading, somehow becoming interested. Not somehow. My grandpa worked on Wall Street. I used to go to his house in the summer, CNBC on the screen. I'm like, what are these numbers? Why do you put this on every day? And that's kind of what started my journey. Almost 10 years ago at this point, right? 9 years ago. And I've been fortunate enough, again, I've said this many times, but I feel like it's important. Fortunate enough to make my silly mistakes early on when I didn't have significant money. When I was just using money I got from shoveling snow around the neighborhood. That was my first money to invest. So I made the silly mistakes with that, buying the silly crypto coins, trying to chase the big options, trying to chase the next big play, right? So my advice, of course, I don't give financial advice, but my general proposition is if you're newer to things, the markets, Bitcoin, whatever it is, start small and keep reading and keep learning, because in doing that, you're able to put your emotions aside during times of uncertainty. For me, the past April, I was really buying heavy different stocks, right? Like I opened a position in Adobe. I've been buying AMD prior to April. Like I just started a little bit earlier this year. I think around February was my first buy. I've been adding to, but I was able to add heavy to those positions, right? Or open the Adobe position, add heavy to AMD and ELF, another relatively newer position for me. And even Palantir, right? Which I've had for a while. During that April dip, and just the S&P as a whole, because it was like, okay, there's extreme fear right now. The VIX is spiking like crazy. And it's not to say there can't be a downturn in the near future, but in hindsight, that was an excellent buying opportunity, right? So it's just an example of you have to learn to leave your emotions at the door when it comes to the market. And that just comes with increasing your knowledge and understanding of just the numbers of the companies you want to be involved in and just markets as a whole. So again, I'm not saying, I'm this grandmaster, I got it all figured out, but I'm just telling you what I'm realizing in real time and what's helping me as time rolls on. So that's my ending monologue. Thank you for being here. Short Fridays, if you're listening to this guy, you are a problem. Short Fridays, hey, you are the problem, buddy. You clicked on the stream. I appreciate you being here, though. I welcome the Bulls. I welcome the Bears. And you can come back on Friday. I'll be live again, so don't worry. We will rock it. Hey, Mr. Beaks, or what is it? Mr. Beakers. Your words, not mine. But listen, you can do what you want at the end of the day, because remember, I am just a guy on the internet. And with that said, we'll wrap it up here. We'll be back Friday around 5 p.m. Eastern. We'll also be live covering the earnings June 10th, Tuesday. We'll start around 3:30. Cover the earnings as they come out. See if anything unforeseen happens. Honestly, I'm expecting the least, because that's just the nature of GameStop. And they just do the minimal to just keep striving forwards. And everyone always thinks, oh, this big thing, this big day, right? The big thing or the big day will come when everybody at least sees it. That's my opinion, at least. Thanks for being here. Have a great night. Let's go Oilers. I have Oilers in 6. They got to get it done. McDavid needs a cup. He needs it. He's up there with like the top players talking hockey here. And the only way he can truly be considered one of the greats in the long run of things is if he wins a couple cups. So he's got to start now. He's so close. Florida's so good, though. I literally could see the series going either way. I really can see it going either way. But they're the best two teams in hockey, and that's why hockey is such an amazing sport to me, because neither team was the best in the regular season, but they added accordingly at the deadline, especially Florida, and are just built for playoff hockey, both teams. So it should be an incredible matchup. We'll see what happens. I really think the Oilers can get it done, though. I think the Oilers can get it done. McDavid's on a mission. Draisaitl's on a mission. But, man, I love watching Florida play, so I can't even be that mad if Florida winds up winning it all. So, Ryan, I know you'll be watching, man. Hopefully it's a good game. I feel like it's going to be a 5-4 kind of game, 6-5 sort of game where it's like both teams haven't played in almost a week. So, and both teams are offensive juggernauts. So, most likely it's going to be a high-scoring game, right? That's my general thought. Although I feel like every time you think that in hockey, then it winds up being like a 2-1 game, right? Like a low-scoring game. And that's what Game 7 was last year for these two teams. Granted, they were grinding out 6 games before that, and it was Edmonton coming all the way back, but they just didn't have enough left in the tank for Game 7. So let's see what happens. And, yeah, we'll be back Friday. Appreciate you being here. Have a fantastic night. Take care.